Hello, all my entrepreneurs and business leaders, and welcome to the Michael Esposito Show, where I interviewed titans of industry in order to inform, educate, and inspire you to be great. My guest today went from washing cars to financing them. He learned leadership on the job and continues to elevate and motivate his employees. Today, he is the VP of Lending at Sawyer Savings Bank, a community bank here in the Hudson Valley. Please welcome Jordan DePuy. Welcome, Jordan.
Thanks for having me today, Mike.
Very happy to have you. I'm very happy that that we ran into each other serendipitously because Sawyer Savings is definitely a bank that that I'm very familiar with. And so to have somebody come on my show and represent them, I'm very happy to. You guys do a lot in the community. You put on a community day, which I got to play a part in.
Yeah.
And of course, big shout out to Liza and Dave Stockrocky, who helped me get onto the chamber board.
Yeah.
Dave was a big player in that, so I got to thank him. So Sawyer Savings, a big part of my life. And then another little shout out to Sawyer Savings, Jen Denier was also a guest on my Shining Light podcast show last year. Right. So she also helped me kick off my podcasting career. So
at this point, Mike, you might just want to just become a employee at Sawyer Savings.
So I am very, very happy to have you on my new show here and speak about helping the businesses in our area and just in general. So as I mentioned, you're the VP of Lending, and you help on the commercial side and on the residential side. But you definitely had a different start to your career, and I'd like to dig into that a little bit because I think all of our business leaders out there have different starts, and It's important for them to see that just because you don't start out in finance, let's say, doesn't mean that you may not end up running the loans department at a bank. So I think it's really tremendous. So I would love to just go back a little bit to your high school career, to working at the car wash, delivering pizzas, what that life was like, and maybe what lessons you learned in that life that brought you to where you are today and help you in where you are today.
Sure. So I actually started at the car wash just kind of off the books a little bit and just helping out my brother. My brother ran the car wash at that point. And I was there to kind of just help him during my summer because I had nothing else to do. I didn't feel like sitting home playing video games at all. I wanted to make, a couple bucks. So, I rode my bike down there, and it's funny how things kind of work because that car wash is now right across the street from our Highland branch in Sawyer.
Oh, wow.
So it really was full circle. So I used to go down there and help him out, running the car wash, putting the cars through the automatic bay, cleaning out all the manual ones, restocking the different liquids and power washing the sides and mowing and things like that. So that was a fun summer and a half because I worked with him even when school started up. Like I'd go down after school and help him out. So it was also fun, especially with my brother. Get some, spend some quality time with him over the summer because there's a 6-year age difference between us. So having that kind of got us a little closer. And
what's his name?
Trevor. Yeah. So it was great. It was great because I was always trying to follow him everywhere when we were little. So that was the first time that I felt like we were probably a little bit closer. Not he was a great big brother and everything. But kind of... You
may have learned some significant life lessons that summer.
Yeah. And he kind of had the same kind of he had the same upbringing, of course, right. But he was working in the pizzeria. He was customer service and things like that. So I learned a lot of customer service stuff from him. And, somebody maybe didn't get the best car wash coming out of the automatic. All right, well, what do you do at that point? How do you diffuse a situation? How do you, talk to a customer without, getting them all riled up. So it was at 14, it was great life lessons. And he might not realize that today, what he did, how he kind of showed me the ropes, so to speak, on customer service and things like that. But he did. I gotta give him some credit at least. I mean, I'm the better looking brother, I know, but I do gotta give him some credit for that.
And I actually know that car wash very well. That's the one that I use. And what about the pizzeria? Because now I'm actually a little small town interested here. Sorry, everyone. I'm just a little interested because I live in Highland as well. So I'd like to know the pizzeria that you were working at.
So at the time, the Mazzella family owned the car wash.
Okay.
The Mazzella family at the time owned Casamia right across the street.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
They had a pizzeria out in New Paltz, Reno's Pizza. Luigi's son, Reno, owned that, and he decided to open up Pizza Mia in the Bridgeview Plaza. So at the time, my brother would work in the car wash, and he would from time to time go to the pizzeria to help because that's where he started.
Right.
So they kind of promoted him from the pizzeria to the car wash. So at the time, like I said, I was 14 at that point, working with my brother. So when I turned 16, I was looking for a couple of jobs. I was trying to kind of create my own niche, my own pathway, but I couldn't get a job. So I had to kind of go see Reno, and he put me in the Highland spot, and I was terrible. I was terrible when I first started.
At the pizzeria?
Yeah. But, they stuck with me, thankfully. I worked 1 day a week for a little while, to the point by a year and a half later, I was kind of one of the main delivery drivers. Wow. And I was still in high school.
Wow.
So I was working 3-4 nights a week, and then all day Saturdays and Sunday nights.
Wow. And
just the rush to kind of help people and then go deliver pizza and, be as courteous and polite and make sure that all their food got there properly. Because I knew at the end of the day, that would speak a lot. That would generate more business, which meant more deliveries, more tips for me.
That's great thinking. What is it that you think that you were terrible at in the beginning?
Oh, man, I was burning food left and right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was, I didn't know.
So that's why they put you in the car.
They put me in the car, but I also didn't know the area. I had just gotten my license.
Right.
So at that point, I couldn't even drive after 9 o'clock.
Right.
So there was a couple of times where I was calling back to the pizzeria. I'm like, I'm on a farm, and I don't know how I got here. Well, use your GPS. I don't have a cell signal.
Right. Wow.
So yeah, it was an interesting first couple months, but even my bosses there, Jamie Manning, Brian Manning, Reno, they were all great. They again, customer service, how to treat people, and always finish everything when a customer finish order, you got it, or thank you, and make sure you say hello when they walk in, because you want to make sure that people feel welcomed into your place. So
right.
I literally felt I kind of had the sense of loyalty a lot, to make sure that whatever I was doing there, I was making sure that I wanted people to come into Pizza Mia and come see me. I wanted people to come into Pizza Mia and have the best food, which they won Best of the Hudson Valley multiple times. So I felt like I was part of that. Even though I didn't have any financial ownership, it still gave me a lot of satisfaction, knowing that I worked at an establishment like that could, pat itself on the back as one of the best in the Hudson Valley,
right.
And that people would come to every Friday night, Monday night, Saturday night, whatever.
Outside of it being a popularity contest to some extent, the best in the Hudson Valley. I mean, we'll be frank here, but you don't just win that just by being popular. You certainly have to put out a good product, and right. I've eaten at all the places, and they are very good. And of course, like I said, got my car washed. What is it that you think got them to be best in the Hudson Valley? Like I said, outside of popularity, but
hands down, their sauce.
Their sauce.
Hands down. We used to have people come in and tell us that even the crust, it was the best pizza in the area, similar to New York City style pizza.
So is that
thin crust, nice sauce, not too much cheese, but just enough.
Is that a secret family recipe, or did they share it with?
No, it's definitely a secret family recipe of the Mazzella family.
That's really cool. I kind of want to stay focused on them for a second, actually, because you mentioned a few things with the Mazzella family, and that they had the car wash first, you said? And then open up the pizzerias, or whichever the order is.
I believe they had owned Casamia. I mean,
right.
Without giving away my age, everything predates me.
Okay, right. So I'm just interested, and we don't need to know exactly the family specifics here, but just in terms of like having you looking at it now as somebody who lends to businesses that want to start off as like, just a one location, maybe I want to just open up a pizzeria, but I don't know what's next. And then maybe going to open up another location or open up a car wash. I'm just interested from your perspective now of looking at their business strategy back then. and seeing how they went from a car wash to a restaurant to a pizzeria, going to these different places, and what you think of it and what you think they did right in all of that.
So I think the first thing that they did right was they focused one thing at a time. So the father, Luigi, really focused in on Casamia. Had his family there. It was a family affair, and typical Italian tradition. Sauce and pasta and meatballs on Sunday, and you get the whole family involved. And I know his whole family worked in the restaurant at some point growing up. So I think that spoke tremendously about their family. But getting back to the business side of it, they really just focused in on the restaurant. Then I believe the opportunity for the car wash came, because I was right across the street. I don't believe they built it. I believe they bought it. But there was an opportunity, and he saw the opportunity to be able to manage it without having to actually be there, because he was right across the street. He could look at it.
Right.
So put the right people in place, built it up before he finally retired and sold the restaurant and the car wash.
I think that's great advice that you just gave there, which was he focused on one thing at a time. Right. He focused on the restaurant, made sure that it was in tip-top shape. And then the other thing that even though, and I'm sure you would probably, as lending to someone, you would say, wait a second, you have a restaurant, you do really good at that, you're going to open a car wash?
Yeah.
But I guess what made sense, and you just hit the nail on the head, I think, is that he was able to keep his eye on it the whole time, put the right people in place, right. And it was right across the street, and watch it. And before we move on, another little small town kind of interesting thing here, right, is that when he ended up decided to close his doors, what's in place of Casamia now?
Sawyer Savings Bank.
So you can't get away from the family.
No, and even working at the pizzeria, I'd have to stop down at Casamia to pick up some jarred sauce every now and then, because Luigi would grow everything in the back.
Oh.
So when we built everything, I said, somebody's got to go plant tomato plants, in the back corner to make sure that, because this soil's good. That
it's still there. It's so wild how it came full circle for you of like where you started. And I mean, I know that you go to the different branches and everything all over in Saugerties and all the different places, but.
To be honest with you, when I first started at Sawyer, I started off as our commercial loan underwriter. Now at that time, we were in the hamlet of Highland, right on the corner there, mm-hmm. Right on Main Street and Vineyard. Yep.
Which is like an old bank building. I know. Yeah, it's still standing.
It's still standing. There's nothing in there right now. Unfortunately, another town uses it from time to time. But it was, I believe, First National Bank of Highland. I think we still had the placard in there. But I started there for like 6 months while they were building the branch. They were finishing off the new branch. So it was. I remember sitting in the office reporting there every day, and my window looked right at the car wash. I'm like, yeah, this thing's full circle for me.
It's hard.
It was like one of those, being early 20s, and like, this is like a weird, like really early full circle moment for you.
Yeah, not everybody gets it, but I think that's sometimes very nice. Many people dream of going to the big city and going like to Manhattan or whatever the big city is that's local to them. And for you, it's really nice. Like you grew up in Highland, and like you said, only for 3 years were you out of Highland, and then you come back and now you have your family here, and you made some really great connections. And I think that speaks a lot to where you live and to the community that you live in.
You want to know what? I didn't go to public school, only from my high school, where I went to St. Augustine's. And even then, and when I transitioned to high school, I always felt the sense of community. A lot of the people who I went to school with throughout my entire school age, all from Highland. All the teachers that I had in high school, most of them either lived in Highland or some of them even went to Highland High School.
Right.
I can't speak badly about any teacher. I literally, I'm serious.
Because they all know where to find you.
No, not even that. It's, you want to know what? I can't. I had some really good teachers that really made me think, that taught me, obviously, the curriculum, but then we're also just caring.
Right.
And I think it's just that small town aspect. So I like to think of the community gave to me. Now it's my turn to give back to the community. And especially now with a 2-year-old and a son on the way.
On the way, like in minutes.
Yeah. Hopefully not in minutes. Hopefully we can get through the conversation before he comes. But yeah.
We will. I cut off your service, so we will. But, I think that, and again, full circle is that, growing up in this community, and then now you work for a community bank, which is full circle, like you just said.
For 6 months, after I graduated college, I actually did work in the city. I worked down for AXA Advisors. It was I was going down there to be a financial advisor and selling life insurance and selling securities and things like that. And I was hitting the wrong clientele. Mm-hmm. And I had a couple of great teachers there and all mentors there, but I just caught on them too late.
Right.
But I learned a lot from them. Again, I learned more of the more financial side of things and the customer service side of that. So, I had the basics from the pizzeria, the car wash and whatnot. And then I learned more of the customer service, financial level 101.
Financial, yeah. I kind of want to go to the mentors. Before we even get back into where you are today, but going back to your Seton Hall experience, and some of the mentors you met there. The one that I want to hear more about, as much as I possibly can about, would be Kevin Willard, because I am certainly a big basketball fan, and so to learn that he was a mentor to you in some capacity, absolutely. I would love to hear some of the stories, or at least some of the guidance that he shared with you.
So Coach Willard's first year at Seton Hall, he had left Iona to come to Seton Hall, was my first year at Seton Hall. And he was taking over a program that was kind of in a little bit of turmoil. He didn't have too many his first few years weren't the best. And he was able to kind of get the program right back on track, and now they're one of the better teams in the Big East, mm-hmm. year in and year out.
Yep.
But the biggest thing I learned from him was work ethic. As a manager on that team, we had to be there before all the players, and we left after all the players.
So let's take a step back here. So let me understand your role on the team. So you were a manager for the team? Yeah.
So basically, we were there to help the coaches.
Okay.
We were there to set up practice. We were there to help the players. So when I first started, the head manager in charge was saying that it's more than just giving out water bottles and wiping up sweat. There's a lot more to it. There was making sure that the logistics were right, make sure that we had all of our equipment and practice gear and game gear for road trips. It was making sure that the gym was set up, but then also to make sure that somebody had to run the shot clock and everything during practice, make things game-like. Sitting in on some of the video sessions and whatnot with the team, learn some more strategy and things like that. Outside of that, we also had to build a program in the community and participating in community events and going to learn different things. I mean, not only was I able to travel up and down the East Coast and out to Notre Dame and Marquette, LSU, but it was also the getting to learn. We were up in the new World Trade Center towers while they were still being built.
Wow.
We got experiences like that because they wanted to show us a culture around the area. Mm-hmm. It was going to help at the soup kitchens and things like that. And then be up the next morning at the crack of dawn in order to go run on the track.
Right. Wow.
So I'll never forget, my first morning practice with them. It was 6:30 in the morning. I was so tired. I didn't know what to expect. I was my nerves were getting the best of me the night before because I was kind of excited, so I couldn't sleep, so I was tired. But he liked to break things down a little bit, and he would work with his big guys. He would work with his forwards. He'd work with his guards, all doing the same things. And I'll never forget. He's there, got his centers and his power forward shooting threes, and they're all just missing. And he's just sitting there, or he's standing there, and he looks right over at me. He goes, "I love making my big guys shoot threes because that means they got to run." But it was to get them out of their comfort zone.
Right.
It was to get them out of their comfort zone, and the way the game even is evolving today. You got a lot of people just relying on the three. So he was kind of the first person I knew of anyway,
right,
to kind of incorporate that into the game plan.
Yeah.
And make sure that, all right, maybe you don't want your center shooting a three, but your four certainly can at this point.
Yeah.
So, and making sure that they know how to handle have the skills to handle it.
Right.
And this is why he's gone on to have a lot of players, develop a lot of players who, a few of them have ended up in the NBA. A lot of them have ended up in the G League, and most of them end up overseas if they can't catch on, which is tremendous.
Right.
So, seeing how he's built that program with the humbleness, the humility, and literally he treats everybody like family. I've stopped down there a few times now. I graduated in 2013, so 8 years ago. I could walk in today. Jay, how's it going? How's the family? How's this? How's that? And he'll spend a couple minutes with me, just see how things are going. Now he's pretty busy, and I know that. So I know, we can't have a conversation for an hour.
Right.
But I remember going to a game down at the Garden and walking out and hanging around for a little bit, talking with a few people, and he walked by, turn around, it's like, hey, what's going on? How's everything going? I was like, Coach, nice win, things like that. So it's really a family.
Right.
And going to Seton Hall, I didn't really know about anything about Seton Hall basketball. I didn't realize the tradition and things like that, and I learned all that. Even though it was his first year, I was able to learn that through him and his staff. Because his staff, I mean, guys, Shaheen Holloway, Big East, great. Grant Bellmeyer, Big East, great. Guys even like Ryan Whalen, who people might not really know up here, but down in Jersey they know. They know him and his dad for coaching, coaching down in the Shore and in North Jersey. So guys like that really were tremendous too, because some of the lower guys on the coaching staff at that time are now all assistants in bigger programs. Or Shaheen Holloway now coaches at St. Peter's. And so it's great to see them kind of grow, because they were just kind of getting their feet wet too. And seeing them grow and being around the same age as I am today and kind of showing us the ropes too while they were still getting their feet wet.
Right.
It's great. It's great to kind of see everybody continuing to succeed after all that time.
Yeah, it's nice to see that when you work with a certain crew and seeing everybody get to a nice point together. I have a two-part question for you. So one, did you play basketball at Highland or something?
I did.
So you played basketball. So you were drawn to it.
Yeah.
You wanted to be affiliated with it in some way when you got to Seton Hall.
Yeah,
so that's what brought you in.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I was not the best player on the team, but I was decent.
Right.
And
you weren't going to make a D1 team like
exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
But you wanted to be affiliated with it.
Right. But the whole game just came to me, But I also worked hard at it. I'm not naturally athletically gifted. I worked to be.
But you are tall too.
I am tall.
Helps.
That does help a little bit.
That helps.
But I was not the center shooting threes.
Right. Although that is the thing now with like Joel Embiid and everybody shooting threes.
Yep.
So the second part to that is it has to do with your management today because you do have a lot of employees and everything. And when we first talked, or in your bio here, you talked about like you kind of got thrown into a management role without any experience. But I'm going backwards here and seeing that you kind of were a manager when you were on the basketball, the group managing the basketball team. I forget how that's called. But what experiences did that teach you? I mean, like you talked a lot about that experience as a whole of learning all of that. Were there any management experiences in that you use today? Some strategies that you learned from Coach Willard of how he spoke to his employees or his teammates?
Yeah, it's
coaches.
Really,
I meant to say.
Yeah, I really like to really treat everybody almost like a family.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure when all my employees walk through the door, they enjoy coming to work every day.
Right.
The one thing I definitely learned from Coach Willard is being able to plan, but also being able to pivot, because you never know what's going to get thrown at you.
Right.
And sometimes that requires late hours. Sometimes things will go exactly how you thought. Sometimes you don't plan on how things go, but your plan will still work, and you just get lucky, and you're like, how did I get myself out of,
right.
how did that happen? So it's management. It's a funny thing. You say it. I said it in my bio, like you were saying. I didn't really have any experience, but I had to manage stuff in practice.
Yes.
While guys who were on the same level as me as managers were doing other things in the program to pack for games and make sure travel stuff was all set and things like that. While I was in practice with some of the younger guys on the manager staff, making sure things were getting done.
Yeah, what I was hearing you say the whole time, which is what I was kind of like, was that multitasking. Was that you were multitasking constantly, and you were kind of, I know that leading by example gets used a lot, but leading by example, by doing things, other people followed you into what you were doing. And then the last thing, and we'll move on from Coach Willard, I promise, but I can't let this go because you put it in quotation, so I gotta hit it, is you said he taught me the grind. And I think you talked about it a little bit about staying up late, waking up early. Yeah. Was there anything else to elaborate on that in terms of the grind and why it's in quotes? I'm assuming he must have said it a lot.
Yeah, he said it a lot. It was anything you do, and anytime you're trying to build something, right? You can't just do it halfway. You have to give 110%. You have to, and that's exactly what he was doing in those 3 years when I was working for him. Was getting guys up early, getting the guys in late in order to shoot around or things like that. We would sometimes do 2 days. We'd have individual sessions in the morning, and then we'd run a full 2.5 hour practice after. So, over the last 18 months, when we were rolling out the PPP program at the bank, a lot of people needed this money. And I can tell you the very first round of PPP money ran out, and 2 weeks later they replenished it. Nobody knew how quick that money was going to go. So me and my president, Jim Whitaker, we had to input all these loans into the SBA at that point. And because everybody was trying to get into the SBA at that time, the site was just running really slow. So we started at 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. We didn't finish until about midnight, 12:30 at night.
Wow.
We both went home, and thankfully we were able to do it remotely. So we weren't actually in the office doing it.
Right, but you're still.
But we were up until 12:30, and I remember emailing him and him emailing me back saying, we're going to look back at this and we're going to laugh one day.
Yeah.
But we felt so accomplished because we knew what we were doing. We knew the purpose and why we were doing it. It was to help all these local business owners. And I'm not saying this to kind of pat anybody on the back or anything, but we knew what our community needed, and we knew we had a way to facilitate this, and it was the only way we could get it done. Now the program ended up going until like the end of July, and this was May, I think. So, but we didn't know at the time when these funds were going to run out.
Right, so you had to do it quick.
So we had to do it. We had to do it as quick as possible before the funding ran out.
And that's the grind.
Yeah.
And that's the grind that you learn. And also I think also being that you worked for a small business, growing into your role, that probably played a big role of being so in tune and in touch with the community.
Yeah.
Another person that you mentioned, and I'll loop in your mom in this because you mentioned some of the same things as your grandfather, but your grandfather Dick, and of course your mom Anne Marie. So I'm interested in their guidance and mentorship in your life.
Yeah. So they were just awesome people. I lost my grandfather in 2008. That was hard, but he had just a sense of him, respect, kindness, and just always doing the right thing. So it was that kind of certainly helped me out. It kind of molded me. Mm-hmm. Everybody's going through their own stuff. It takes a minute just to see how people are doing, and also putting your best foot forward, no matter what you're doing. I would get like a 97 or 98 on a test growing up. I would, he'd ask me how school's going. Oh, I got a 97, 98 on this test. Oh, that's great. Did you try your best? Yeah. He goes, great, but there's still room for improvement. So always always trying to push yourself. My mom, who I just lost in January, unfortunately, would always push both my brother and I, and go one step further. Was there's still room for improvement, and by the way, there's people coming to also behind you trying to be better than you. So as long as you do your best, that's all I care about. So could get 100 on a test, and if we told her we didn't do our best, she's like, well, try a little harder next time.
Right.
So her biggest motto, and I actually got shirts for my daughter and my wife that actually say, don't be sorry, be better. So yeah, sometimes you might make a mistake, learn from that mistake and be better the next time. And you did make a mistake, learn from it, grow.
Right. And which I mean is obviously on the personal life, but that definitely in the business life, it's
Absolutely.
the same thing. It's the customer service, as you mentioned, is like, don't say sorry to your customer. Of course, say it if you need to say it, but do better by them. Right. Like you said, your brother taught you, like, get them, if the car came out dirty, then let's run it through again, exactly. Or let's do what we can to make sure that it's all good. And then one other mentor, because you did list all of these people, so I feel it's very important to bring them up for you, but Gabriel Scottile, the chairman, Sortil, the chairman of Sawyer Savings, you mentioned he taught you a lot about business that wasn't taught in school. So, and you say so basically everything. I think that that's really important for our business leaders to hear and our entrepreneurs to hear. I think that a lot of entrepreneurs, maybe they choose, they might have graduated with a graduate diploma and all that other stuff, but some of them may have just come out of high school. Yeah. And so they're learning on the job. And then, of course, our business leaders who are trying to climb the corporate ladder from an entry-level position into a C-suite, hopefully that they might, or an executive position they might be aiming for, they have to learn some certain things too that aren't taught in school. Right. So I think that this is a really, really important moment to dig into about some of the things that he taught you and those lessons and how they're applied to be able to move up the corporate ladder or to be able to expand your business and grow in the business world. Because, entrepreneurship and moving up the corporate ladder is not taught in school. Right. You could only kind of learn the tools of it. So what were some of the first things that he started with you?
So. So he likes to say that I now go to the School of Hard Knocks. My school colors are black and blue. But going through college, and you learn all this stuff, and having a finance degree, I learned derivatives. I learned a lot of different things on the stock market. I don't use any of it today. I learned some stuff about the economy and things like that. And some of it certainly is helpful. I mean, don't get me wrong. My education didn't go to waste for nothing. Right. But having the hands-on experience does a tremendous thing. So, for anybody listening who maybe doesn't have that college degree or an MBA or anything like that, a degree doesn't define you. It's what you do that defines you, is how I like to think of it. I like to learn, and I like to learn from experience, but not everybody's like that. My brother, for example, he went on to start a few businesses, and he doesn't have his college degree. He's more of a hands-on learner and things like that. But with Gabe, I remember my first day at Sawyer, I met with HR, went over a bunch of things, and then they brought me into his office. And coming from AXA, where I couldn't even tell you the president's name, the CEO's name, the chairman's name. Because at that point he had held all three titles. To be sat in his office and to be introduced to him and have a conversation with him, I was like, whoa, this is new to me. I was, my palms were getting a little sweaty, I think, because that's what I kind of thought what president was this guy all the way up here, and but he sat with me for a good half hour, just talking, getting to know me a little bit, getting to know who I was, my background, what I did know, what I didn't know. I didn't know it at the time, but looking back at it, I do now. And at that point, I was working down in Highland, but he would come down once a week, once every other week, spend time with people. And, just kind of pick our brains to see where things were and kind of give his insight. So it's really his insight over, he still sits on our chair, but he was an active employee of the bank for over 40 years.
Wow.
So, and he started out off as an auditor and kind of worked his way up. So he saw a lot. He went through a couple different crises financially, in his tenure at the bank, including 2008, and just sharing that experience with us. And him and my direct boss at the time, Cindy Saporito, who was our COO, who was with them for a little shorter than 40 years, but who also recently retired and also sits on our board. Between the two of them, they were excellent mentors. Really taught me a lot of different things about banking, about life, and just spending that time. So once I moved up a little bit into the management role, and I was working up in Saugerties more where they were based, I saw much more. And, just come in and just sit themselves in my office. How are things going? How are things going at home? How are things going here? And what are you seeing here? What do you think? All right, well, this is what I think. And not saying it's right or wrong, but people have different ideas.
Right.
And it's then at that point it's collaboration. And giving me just enough rope to kind of grow freely and come to them with questions and things like that, but then also to kind of reel me back in when maybe the idea I had, they already knew wasn't going to work because they already had the experience. Right? You can't teach experience. So that's why I say they taught me everything I didn't know about banking because I didn't know. They literally taught me everything on the fly and or just in literally sitting in my chair, and sometimes conversation would be 15 minutes. Other conversation would be 2.5 hours.
Right.
So
you said so, and this has nothing to do with age, just has to do with time in your life. So you graduated college in 2013. So you were obviously very young during 2008 when the crisis happened. So I'm interested, did Gabe or Cindy ever talk to you about how Sawyer Savings managed through 2008? Because, coming from the banking perspective, like we hear it from the business perspective all the time. I'd be interested to hear if there's any stories or anything that you learned from the banking side in 2008 that they shared with you.
Yeah. So Gabe is a really smart guy, and he's kind of saw a few things that didn't look right, and he had to pivot. And the bank was doing great, and it was like, all right, this is not. He often said, this is not time to be a hero. All right, be a hero by protecting the bank. Right, because the bank stays solid, then the community will stay solid. That's kind of our... because for Sawyer Savings, which is a small town community bank, 2008 must have been really rough for them. Like to even survive, it's pretty impressive. It was, well, this is also our 150th year.
I was just going to say, 150 year anniversary. Wow.
And, we made it through, and from what I have been told, we made through decently. Too. It was, it's not like we were just skating by or anything.
Right.
So we had the protections.
That's what I was going to ask. Did they share with you what some of the, and not internal strategies? Like I'm not asking you to share any secrets of the sauce,
but definitely.
But like like some of the leadership of like, this is why we believe we were able to get through it.
Exactly. And they would kind of go through all that stuff and, looking at different loans. And they would kind of, some things would kind of sell alarms off to them at during some points. That said, oh, this would remind me of this. But it works in today's model. This wouldn't have worked in 2008, but it works in today's economy and things like that.
So some creativity was involved.
Right. And then once, people were still kind of hurting back in 2012 and 2013, that's when we came out with the first-time homebuyer model, 100% financing, which you don't see really anywhere other than Sawyer Savings.
Right.
And that's, I like to think of it the way they explained it is we're the first bank to kind of protect ourselves, and then we're the first bank to be able to kind of really open the doors right back up and be able to lend when things were kind of on smoother ground. Yeah. And then 2013, 2012, when things were just starting to get a lot better, that was when, we could be the hero.
Right. And that's kind of when you kind of came into the picture, 13, 14 or so?
2014, yeah.
14, yeah. So you mentioned a few things there that I think are really important to hear here and or listen to here, that is. And I've heard it before too in the podcast where just listening, that leadership took the time to listen. Leadership and leadership being Gabe or Cindy or anybody in a leadership position, but using your mentor there, Gabe. He made time in his busy schedule, his busy day, and you know how busy he was now that you're kind of in a position very close to it, right? But he made time to listen to his employees and to ask them how they're doing and what's going on in their personal life as well as the business life, not just focusing on the business life, but also the personal. And so obviously that impacted you and we're able to teach you certain things through his stories. I think that's a great lesson to be learned, that anybody who's listening, and I'm sure you could add on to this, anybody who's listening, is that if you're in a position or looking for a new position, if you're looking to move into the C-suite or move into an executive position or just get out of an entry-level position, one, open your doors and make time to hear other people out that are maybe your peers, but see if there is somebody in a leadership position that you could sit in and go meet them and have a cup of coffee with, or just pick their brains, right? Because I mean, sometimes I would assume Gabe didn't just open his door and say, hey, who's standing out there? Come on in. Let me share some drops, some wisdom with you. You had to make time yourself, right, Jordan? You had to make yourself vulnerable and accessible to say, hey, Gabe, can I catch you for a minute, right?
So one of the biggest things I've learned is, you always hear about an open door policy, and everybody has an open door policy, but do they really sometimes though? Mm-hmm. And literally with anybody that I've worked with at Sawyer, or I currently work with now, my current president and my CEO, Jim and Doug, both exemplify this as well, just as much as Gabe and Cindy did. Their door was literally always open. Mm-hmm. And I could always go to them if I had a question, if I just needed to vent, if I needed to talk about anything. But then they also come over to my office and just sit down. At that point, okay, your boss is coming to sit down, you know what's going on. But they also had the humility to say, if you're doing something, I can come back later, or I can come back tomorrow.
Right.
So I don't, I feel like now in the environment we work in, and I'd rather take that time, because I tend to learn stuff like that just through conversation and asking questions.
Right.
So I never like to give up any of that time, because I knew I was going to learn something that day, or get somebody's mind going for the next thing for the bank.
Right.
So, I like to exemplify that with my staff too. And
how do you make them aware of that? And I guess this is maybe like a leadership question. How are you making your staff aware that they can just pop in?
So during the pandemic, we were kind of we were using Microsoft Teams, because we were in the office one week and the next week we're out, and we're all on different schedules. Mm-hmm. So always making sure that if I was in the meeting, that green light was on, so they knew I was available. Making sure that they all have my cell phone number and know that I'm fine with them to shoot me a text if they need anything during the day, whether they need something after hours or anything like that. You're not going to be in that day, shoot me a text. And then I like to follow up with them to make sure everything's okay. Because any company's biggest asset are their employees. Mm. So what I learned from Gabe and Cindy is to invest in your employees. And that's just time. That's time. That's, teaching them a few things that, maybe you're seeing that, great, they do their job great, but they're kind of just doing it and they're kind of getting a little bored. And now it's time to push them a little more. And you're not going to know that without talking to them. If you go in, hey, good morning, how you guys doing? And then walk away.
Right.
You're not really going to know how they're feeling.
Right. Like really digging in deep and asking them questions about their life.
Yeah.
And getting to know their life.
Yeah.
So I guess while we're on the leadership track here, which you mentioned in here too, and we're kind of talking a little bit about is building up your employees' skill set. I'm very interested in, first of all, I love the fact that you just said that your employees are your greatest asset. Yeah. Because yes, I think that an old school way of thinking is that they're a cost, but they're not. They're not a cost at all. They are an asset, and it's amazing. So one of my first podcasts that I had Trivium Point on, and Ron and George, and we talked about this, about looking at employees as an asset and talking about how they are crucial to your success, right, and to your bottom line, and that you have to look at them as an investment and as an asset. Right. And I think that I love that you just said that to really put a point on that. So I'm interested too into your thought process and how you go about doing this, of building your employee skill set, because part of them being an asset is not just what they bring to the table, but what they're able to grow into. Right. And so you obviously have a strategy or a technique or whatever it is in terms of tips of being able to get your employees to give their best, like mom and grandpa Dick taught you, but then exceed that. So I'm interested in that philosophy.
So, everybody learns differently. Some people are hands-on. Some people just like to follow procedures. It's especially when you're onboarding a new employee and you're bringing them onto a team. It takes a little while to figure that out. And so sometimes I just like to ask them straight, point blank, are you more of a hands-on, or is it easier for you to follow a procedure and learn? And that, I think, kind of gets, me ahead a few days, from trying to learn, from trying to show something and then show them the procedure and say, why don't you read the procedure and we'll come back and we'll do it together or something like that. That just wastes time. And, they're there to do a job, and I need them to do a job in order to make sure our customers are satisfied. So, if I can kind of just get right to the point like that. So, we talked about the grind before. I've kind of worked myself up over the last 7 years that I've been at the bank, that I know a lot of different programs. I know a lot of different the procedures and things like that. So I like to be hands-on. I like to, if they have a problem and they come to me, I like to be able to know how to fix it or show them, you're doing this and it really should be that, and just be able to do that. So I like to be in the know, so to speak. And sometimes I'm not. It's just because of product updates and things like that with some of our software. So at that point, then we have to call the company and open a case and things like that to kind of get the problem solved. But at that point, I also like to know, okay, so now we're both going to learn what did our vendor just do to our software that what we used to do always worked, and what we wasn't in the release notes or anything like that in order to get this. So that way, next time that happens, you know it, and then I know it too in case you're out on vacation or out sick and somebody else is picking up the slack. So that's kind of how I like to kind of build their skill set. I've also seen employees, like how I was describing before, just kind of going through the motions. They were good at their job, just kind of going through the motions, not just being challenged enough. And, when there's an opportunity doesn't always come knocking at your door. I like to try to, say, hey, we got this opportunity. Is this something you're interested in? And go that way. So we just had one of our longtime employees retire, Annette Murphy, after many years of being our residential underwriter. So I had to find another underwriter, and we trained from within. We took somebody who wasn't in our residential origination side. They came from our servicing side, and we built them up over the last year, and he's doing great so far. So it was putting together a training plan, following up on that training plan, making sure that he had all the tools he needed in order to be able to effectively do the job as soon as Annette enjoyed the retirement sunset. Yeah.
What you touched on there, and I think is really great, is that you ask up front. Outside of all of the things that you just mentioned about being involved, being aware, being transparent. I mean, you didn't say transparency, but basically you pretty much are very transparent of like, I don't know something, we're going to learn it together, right? Yeah. I love that. I think that that's really great, and is a great, as a leader, that's a great quality to have, is transparency and authenticity. But like a cheat code, right? If there's any cheat code to management, is just asking them, how do you learn? I love that. I think that that's so great. Of how do you learn? How can I train you?
Well, rather than waste time and see what sticks,
right?
It's yes. As an organization, we have the duty, the responsibility to train you. But at the same time, why are we going to, smash a square peg in a round hole?
Right.
Let's cut to the chase. Let's see what works best for you, and we'll work together on it.
Yeah.
So, and it works most of the time. Sometimes, using that mindset on most problems works. Sometimes it doesn't, right? Because sometimes you have to kind of draw the line and know what's best for the institution.
Right. But you know what? The other thing that I would assume that this fosters is trust. Is that by asking them to also be vulnerable on their end, because they have to tell you, hey, you know what? These training modules, they don't work for me. I'm a more hands-on trainer, so they have to be able to know that they can be honest with you. So that fosters trust between you and these new employees, right?
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you that one of the last times we onboarded somebody new, we showed them a few things, and then we got them more of a formal training, a webinar. She comes back to me and says, I understand why you were saying to us and why you sent us, because this is an important thing, but the person directing the webinar just was really subpar.
Lost you.
I was like, great, now we know, so we know to kind of look for a different model for you, or a different webinar to look for anybody going through that same topic, because that just was painful for them.
Yeah, and we've all sat through painful webinars, and
Yeah.
I think if anything, COVID has probably taught a lot of us, if not hopefully all of us, how to better conduct a webinar, how to better be camera ready and camera friendly, and be able to manage sharing our screen and unmuting ourselves properly. I think I hope that we've learned a lot through this.
I'm sure you can relate to this too from a customer, your front line,
right,
in your business, but to be able to meet that way, it's not as foreign now.
Right.
It is, hey, you want to, here's a company phone, and we're going to put your number out. You're going to put this number out on the website, and they can call or FaceTime you.
Mm-hmm.
Or, here's a calendar. Get on our salesperson's calendar and meet with them face to face without having to come from point A to go to point B. Because, time, right? Time is, everybody gets a lunch break. Most businesses close at 5. So when do these people have time to meet with them? And sometimes it's, body language is 80% of actual communication.
Mm-hmm.
So to just get everything off the phone and things like that, to actually see face to face, make eye contact and things like that, I think is a great way that builds trust too with new customers, new employees, and just people in general.
Yeah, I think if we're on the COVID topic here of like what we may have learned from it, or maybe what positivity came out of it all, it certainly is that we've learned how to be flexible with whether we're meeting in person or meeting virtually, and certainly I don't think anything will ever change. I think take over in terms of like being better than meeting in person. I mean, that's why I like to do these interviews in person, because there's definitely, like you said, with body language and little tics and little things that we're able to feed off of each other and play off of each other a little bit better. But I have done these interviews also virtually, and they do run very smoothly. And I also know that now when I meet with somebody on Zoom or something, if they don't have their camera on, I'm like, wait a second, I want to see you. Yeah. Like put your camera on. I don't care if there's a dog in the background. Let's do this thing,
Just be yourself.
Yeah. So it actually maybe is.
Yeah, I know when COVID first hit and everybody was sent home, my daughter's daycare closed for 6 months. So I was working home every other week. Like I said, my wife's a nurse. She couldn't take off. And she was home with me. Now, I didn't take any time off when she was born, but having those every other week for 6 months with her was great. I had to work a little longer when in the day, because I had to tend to her a little more, change a couple diapers, and got her potty trained actually while we were home, which was awesome. Like that was like, as a dad moment, that was great.
That is cool.
But then, getting to play with her a little bit during the day, during my lunch break, and then getting her down for a nap, things like that. I had to put a couple more hours in at night, work, maybe put the laptop down for a little bit and then pick back up later in the day, just to make sure all my work was getting done, to make sure that all my employees had everything they needed, or the bank needed whatever they needed from me. But that was tremendous. Was just be able to kind of pivot from a personal standpoint.
Yeah.
And to be able to do that was, that's one of the few positives I think I could take out of COVID.
Yeah, no, I certainly echo that for sure. I think we have to give you big props that you potty trained your daughter. So, I feel that I'm a pretty hands-on dad. Like I try to do as much as I can, but I did not take any role or part in potty training.
I'm not saying this just because she'd get mad at me, but my wife did have a hand in it. When she did get home,
we all know moms have a hand in everything with the kids, but
we were on the same page when if I was busy or something, she would do the same thing I was doing.
But the percentage of dads having a hand in potty training is very low. So just by having a fingernail in there, which we won't use in potty training world, but we're going to move on back to the professional side of things. But yeah, I definitely got to give you big props for that. Going into overcoming challenges. So obviously, hey, look, while we're on the potty talk for a second here, that's a huge challenge in a child's life, and they overcome it, and the victory that they get from being able to go on the potty is amazing. Yeah. And I can almost say that we could transition into coming over challenging moments is a similar feeling to some extent. Like you said, you went into the banking world. You got your eyes opened by Gabe, and then you get moved into a management position, which very quickly, and were the youngest in your division. Yeah. So you had a lot of challenges just in terms of that, of just having to overcome the ageism of who's this young guy going to tell me what to do. I'm interested in that challenge, one, because I know that there's a lot of people out there that may experience the same thing as they move into executive roles or as entrepreneurs hiring employees that are maybe older than them or maybe more savvy in a certain role than them. I'm very interested in, one, overcoming that challenge and some of the techniques that you use to be able to do that, or maybe some of the digging deep into your bag of tricks from back in Seton Hall and some of the things that Gabe taught you of being able to overcome it. So
the good thing about that point when I first started was I did have the support. Mm-hmm. I had the support of my senior management team. And again, the open door policy and being able to, I'm dealing with this. How do I get to this? And, you've dealt with this person for so many years. Do you have any insight on how I can approach them and things like that?
Because let's just go back to the age for 1 second. You're in your 20s, right, in this role?
I'm about to leave it, but yeah, I'm still in my 20s.
In your 20s,
yeah,
and you're managing people that are older than you, 30s, 40s, 50s, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it really multi-generational,
right,
staff,
right,
and at that point, I didn't really know a lot about I knew lending because I came from business lending, our commercial division, mm-hmm. and then to move over to our residential side. It's the same thing, but it's also like night and day. I like to say commercial lending is like an artwork, right? The way files are put together and the underwriting goes, but there's so many regulations and whatnot on the residential side, as there should be, that it's more like a math equation. So every single loan is on the same form, same ratios, same calculations on income and credit and things like that. But there were just so many regulations that I just be in that role. I was like, oh my God, like I was really hesitant about taking the position. And Cindy and Gabe just sat me down and, made me feel a little more comfortable. And at that point I was like, opportunity doesn't always come around. An opportunity like this certainly does not always come around to be made, officer of the bank. I didn't know when the next time was going to be. So I had to put my trust in them and just go for it. And thankfully I had a good staff who, after building my rapport with them, we were able to teach me and then get some more formal training as well. Some webinars, some actual classes, some, as I like to say, the School of Hard Knock classes from Gabe and Cindy, to really get my knowledge up on the topic. But then came the whole management thing. They put me in the Ulster Chambers leadership class, ULDI, mm-hmm. for that ran from September to June, the year before they put me in this. So I had a little bit of formal training before that, but then to really jump in and deal with the staff and deal with some of the issues going on at that point with how processes were running and utilizing this system that they were on that just wasn't, I don't know if it wasn't set up right. I don't know if with all the changes and product updates that we just weren't keeping up with, but everybody was really frustrated with it and trying to make that work because we were in a contract and it would have cost us a lot of money to get out of the contract and go to a new system. And would that really help? A lot of different things that were going on at that point. So I really just had to build my rapport with them and get to know people, like I said before. And that was able to let me know who was doing a really good job, who needed a little more help, and who was having issues more technical than actual experience.
Mm-hmm.
So it was hard. It was hard for me because I had to look at these people as coworkers, and it really get in the mindset it's not about age,
right?
And what my mission was. My mission is to protect the bank, and make sure that the bank is sound, and to make sure that customers are being served properly and efficiently and things like that. But then also throw the employees in to make sure that they had what they need in order to achieve those goals as well.
I think that that's so significant because, like you just said, age, you have to put age aside, and that certainly is a challenge, and that's really kind of the crux of my question, which was, as a 20-year-old, how do you manage these older people, right? And I'm one of those older people. not that you're managing me, but I think that that's a really great tip of wisdom there, which is what's the mission? And what's the goal? So if you're starting a business and you have a mission and a goal and you're hiring some people that may be older than you or more experienced than you, what's your mission? What's your goal? And same thing if you're an entry level trying to move into...
And when you talk about hiring, one of the biggest things I found is hand over fist beneficial is when you're hiring somebody might look great on paper and they might have all this experience, but they might not be a fit for your team and your culture. I've hired people with less experience because I knew that they could learn quickly. I felt that they could learn quickly and that they were going to be a great fit for our team. And as somebody who's in their own business and things like that, I would have to give them that advice is don't always go for the best resume. Sure, you might be able to weed out a few of them, but take a risk, and fly on a few interviews,
right.
Just to meet a few people at the end of the day. If that's what comes out of it, you made a connection or something like that.
Right. What is it that you think Gabe and Cindy saw in you when they decided they said,
I have no idea. I have no idea. I don't know.
All right, so I prepped you for this question. I told you got it. Let's approach this in a confident manner. You are a confident individual. I mean, look, I would never know that you're in your 20s by meeting you, and it has nothing to do with your appearance. It just has to do with your knowledge and the way that you carry yourself.
I thought for sure you were going to say the beard.
No, but you certainly do. You have a tremendous amount of knowledge in the banking world, and you carry yourself as somebody much older and wiser. Like you have a very stoic way of being out in the public, quite honestly, from all the times I've met you at different events. So I'm assuming that that's part of what they saw in you, but there seems to be something else that maybe Gabe had from those one-on-ones with you or Cindy had. I don't know. There might be something that maybe you're holding back that they saw in you that...
They must have saw something, I guess, right?
Would work ethic be one of them?
I think it comes back to the grind.
Right.
I think it comes back to the grind, giving it 110% and making sure that I'm giving my best effort, putting my best foot forward day in and day out. That's what I think has got me to where I've become.
Yes.
I like to learn new things, and make sure that when I do learn them, I know them, and because I like to know how things work, whether it's things about the world, whether it's things about finance, whether it's even some like my daughter's toys. I'm looking at them, I'm like, how do they work? And then I'll if she's not playing with them, I'll pick them up and I'm looking at them like, oh, okay, so that's how that thing goes. Okay,
yeah.
So that way, when something breaks or something's wrong or something can be improved on, depending on the situation, then I kind of have a head step on the situation.
Right.
It's not a mindset that everybody has that I've come to learn, but it's a mindset that I like to try to project on everybody and try to get them to kind of come up to that level as well.
Yep.
You're doing X for reason Y, and making sure that when, especially my employees, know why they're doing things. Like, great, we're giving somebody a loan, we're giving them money, they're going to pay us back. Okay, great, that's lending. No, we're giving them a loan in order to better their business, in order for them to make maybe a couple more dollars or a lot more money, depending on the situation, in order to better our community. That's the kind of mindset that I have now as a community banker. That's a mindset I had as a pizza delivery guy. That's a mindset I had as a student at Highland High School. Is what's the bigger picture? Why am I doing this? And yeah, it's really easy, Mike, to get lost in the process of things. And because I've done it, and I've had to take a step back and like, whoa, I'm more worried about how to get the task done, but I'm not like what happens after I get the task done.
Right.
So
yeah, no, I think that's great, and I agree with you 100%. It was definitely a leading question. I think that they saw the grind in you. I love that, and then best foot forward, and then I would name the other thing curiosity. Is that you certainly have a lot of curiosity, and I think that those are great attributes for anybody who's trying to move up. Is that if you can show your employer, if you can show your team and everyone that you work really hard and that you'll put in the extra hours or work on new projects. And then best foot forward, I love that you said that, because that goes back to, and I love how you just broke that down of going back to even high school. It just goes back to what Trevor taught you of like customer service, putting your best foot forward, making sure that the customer's happy, making sure that everybody around you is happy. And then curiosity is huge, I think, and is sometimes overlooked, because curiosity is what leads to new things. It's what leads to innovation. It's what leads us to be able to ask the customer, are you satisfied? Are you happy? Is you're curious? So having that, and I'm sure that that's a really great quality as a leader. Curiosity
might have killed the cat, but it makes for a great entrepreneur and a business leader.
Yeah. As we kind of wrap up this episode, which I think you just dropped just tremendous knowledge for anybody looking to go into a leadership position or advance their career. And thank you for the insight in the banking world. I'd like to just go back to some of the stuff that you do in terms of a community. So Sawyer Savings puts on something called Community Day, where you pretty much take over the whole Highland field and have all these small businesses come there. Yeah. I would love to hear a little bit more about that. And then kind of side note, a little bit about the Ulster Chamber of Commerce's leadership training course and that impact on you. So we don't have to elaborate too much on all of that, but I certainly want to hear about Community Day.
So Community Day, unfortunately, this year you got to pass up on.
Sure, we understand that
COVID, but just a sense. We used to have Springfest and Town of Lloyd Day in Highland. They still do Springfest, but I remember going as a kid down into the hamlet and seeing all these vendors, and we'd close Main Street and Vineyard Avenue from Sal's up to the corner there by the old library. And like
about a mile stretch for those who don't know the town.
Yeah. So it was just I think they had skipped it for a couple of years at that point. They've since brought Springfest back, which is somewhat like it, but it's just a sense to kind of get everybody down together and really show us, everybody our true colors. We're actually doing Sororities is we're trying to plan a day up there to commemorate our 150th, beginning of September, to kind of get everybody just back together now, especially since more people are vaccinated, and out of their homes, and get everybody to seeing one another again, and getting vendors there to kind of showcase their business. It's not always the Geicos of the world, right? Insurance guys or the JP Morgans. It's the community people that really make things run, and especially in the Hudson Valley. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to come back home, because I knew everybody. I shouldn't say I knew everybody, but I knew this shop and that shop, and I knew Pizza Mia had the best pizza in the Hudson Valley. And, I didn't have to go all the way out to Spumoni Gardens in order to get a slice, if I wanted the best. Things like that. So, it's a good time to get everybody together to, maybe make a couple of these smaller individual shops, a couple, a little more exposure, a couple extra dollars at the same time, and get the community together. Yeah,
I got to experience Community Day. I was able to be a vendor there, and what I really liked, what was very refreshing to me about that day was typically as a vendor, you have to pay a fee in order to have a table and a tent. And I remember asking Liza when she had asked, said, how much is it going to be? And she said, no, you just come in and we're going to promote it, and you come in. And it was really cool. There was so much excitement around it, where all the different vendors, we all had our tents up, and I was representing my old the insurance company that I worked for at the time. Accent, and it was just really exciting to do. I actually ended up setting up a photo booth, and people were coming by taking pictures. So it was just a lot of fun, and I really do miss that, and I look forward to it coming back. And you guys are celebrating your 150th year, so congratulations on that. Looking back at and I know we didn't touch on the leadership, but I would assume that played a big part. Ulster County Chamber of Commerce's leadership training. Yep. In those training programs, I know a little bit about them, and you could elaborate if you need to, but they teach you leadership, one, of course, that's what it's called, right? But public speaking, which is very important, crucial. And what would you say is maybe the third biggest thing that they might?
I know in Ulster, I think the Dutchess Chamber does this as well, but they do like a community project or a community fundraiser.
Right, yes, event. They do, yes.
So we did a bowl-a-thon. And we had a silent auction there with, we were raising money for Family of Woodstock at that point. So to help with their single mother shelter. So it was, it was a way to give back to the community too. So it's, community servitude. Yeah,
I certainly would say that anybody who has a local chamber, take a look at their leadership programs. If you are an entrepreneur or even a business leader or whatever you are, take a look at your local chamber's leadership programs, because they are tremendous. You do have to pay to be a part of them. Sometimes your company might sponsor you, but they certainly are worth it, because you're just going to learn a great amount. But also, I would say the networking that's involved in it. You're going to rub shoulders with VPs of banks, but you're going to rub shoulders with some really great people, and to support your local chamber, who then, like you just said, supports local non-for-profits and great causes, is tremendous. Jordan, this is my last question, I promise everyone. I like to just take a look back of your business career. And when you take a look back of it as a whole, what do you think was maybe one of the most gratifying experiences for you when you look back?
Most gratifying.
And you could go back to Seton Hall. You can go as far back as you want.
You want it's every day I get up, go into work, and get to work with business owners, get to work with the community, get to work with individuals who affectionately are my neighbors, and being able to help them out. So being able to see other people succeed I feel is the best thing, hands down, why I do what I do. It's why I get up in the morning. It's why I sometimes will work a little later, just to make sure that, the bank is doing well, but also to make sure that the people that are borrowers and customers are getting their needs met in order for them to succeed, and make sure that we're also not putting them in a position where they may fail. When we're looking at things, we're making sure that we're doing as much underwriting and fact checking and things like that in order to make sure that they'll succeed. And if we feel like maybe it's not, well, then we'll come back at you and we'll work with you to see how we can accomplish the same goal.
I love that. Yeah, it's really nice. You work for a community bank, you live in the community, you see all these people, and like you said, you walk into their businesses, you get to see the smile on their face as their business succeeds. Yeah. So I have no more questions for you in terms of business, but we do know you have a baby on the way. So we have to give a big shout out. I would like you to do that. Big shout out to your wife, who obviously is a tremendous support support player in your life, and your daughter, and then maybe the newborn. Maybe we get a little name here.
No. The name will be a secret for my son, but yes, my wife Gia and my daughter Ella really are a motivating factor for me in all aspects of life.
Fantastic, and a son in minutes.
Yeah, we'll see. Either minutes, days. He's coming soon.
Jordan, thank you so much for coming on the show. If you are a business owner or looking to start a business, please do contact Jordan and Sawyer Savings. They can certainly help you. Jordan, do you have maybe a website, email address, or any type of thing to share?
They can visit our website at www.sawyersavings.bank, or they can call any one of our local branches in Saugerties, Highland, or Marlborough, and they can get in contact with the appropriate people.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me today, Mike.
Awesome. Thank you for listening to The Michael Esposito Show. For show notes, video clips, and more episodes, go to michaelespositoinc.com/podcast.